many years I've stood by the sidelines when a new Pokémon game was released. Not that I minded, because I just wasn't into games as much as I've been over the past few years. But now, having played Pokémon Shield, I can see why people absolutely love these games. I don't think I'll ever play the older games, nor do I think I'll ever religiously pre-order the next games. I'm not even sure if I want to play the DLC at this point. But I've gained enough respect for the series over the past 4 years, to the point where I thought it was a good idea to change my channel branding to a touched-up model of a Pokémon gym leader. Speaking of... Achoo! Right, so what was this video about again? Oh yes, my 10 favourite Pokémon. If you think Pokémon, which immediately comes to mind? If you have any functioning brain cells, you'd have said Pikachu, and you'd be right. Pikachu has carried this series for such an ungodly amount of time that you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't even have a piece of Pikachu merch lying somewhere. Even I have some. Look. And while Pikachu has pretty much become the face of Pokémon, it could do with a bit of a touch-up, couldn't it? I caught a Pikachu pretty late into my playthrough of Pokémon Shield, and I sort of accidentally evolved it into a Raichu. Raichu has all the upsides of a Pikachu, but it just looks endlessly cooler, and its passive ability Static puts enemies which physically attack you into paralysis, just to be that wee bit more of a dick. To put it bluntly, Raichu is everything Pikachu wished he ever was. I don't even use Raichu, but it deserves the best. Pokémon always, as an outsider looking in, gave me the feeling that a Pokémon themselves should have no bounds. Which is to say that every member of the same species of Pokémon has a different look, a different mannerism, and even attacks to some extent. And while that's pretty much what I got, there was one Pokémon which was basically the antithesis of everything I ever expected Pokémon to be. Alchemy is this tiny chubby lady made out of whipped cream, and there's oh so many of them! She evolves from a milkery, and depending on what sweet you use, the direction you spit in, and even the real life time of day, you get a handful of a different variant of Alchemy. The first one I caught was the result of a max raid battle, and I did not know they came in different colours. Now I have enough creamy ladies to fill a whole team with pain. Wait, no. If there would be one other thing which is perhaps the most appealing aspect of the Pokémon universe, it's the sense that all of the Pokémon have their own assigned role in society. So all game long you hear about the flying taxis, which is the fast travel system in Sword and Shield, and you're carrying around this tiny wee robin, or is it a tit, on your adventure until it evolves into a magpie. You then play around a wee bit more, and the very Pokémon that carries the flying taxi is in your party as you struggle to realise how a raven spawns from a robin. Corviknight is this giant raven which is coated in armour, and while it is a flying steel type, it can still devastate a team with the knockout that is Brave Bird. It's also a fucking raven in armour! It has a role just beyond being a party member, and that's honestly how all Pokémon should be handled. Also, both male and female Corviknights have beards, and it's perhaps the sexiest thing I've seen yet on a Pokémon. Put a beard on Alchemy and we're talking. Recognizability is a huge part of any franchise. Doesn't matter if you're a game about monsters kept in balls, or a game about school children shooting super soakers at each other, or a hat simulator. If you can create a design which sticks with people, you've already won over a huge percent of the potential market. And while Pikachu is the definite mascot for Pokemon as a series, can we at least agree that Wooloo is the unbeaten mascot for Sword and Shield? Wooloo was, as I assume to be the case with loads of other people, the first Pokemon I picked up. And can you blame me, it's like totally adorable. And while it looks nice and pretty, it can also form a solid cornerstone for any beginning trainer. It's not an outstanding Pokemon by any means, and you'll eventually find something way better to take its place, but I almost feel that it was 100% designed to be used that way. Maybe it's obvious and I'm just dumb. What got you hooked on the Pokémon franchise? If you answered the card game, you're a fucking liar. It's either the games or the anime. I never really watched the anime since I prefer to spend my time building and playing with model railways, But I of course did watch the odd episode or two. One episode I always remember when someone mentions the Pokemon anime is about a mon who refuses to battle. Turns out, in-game this mon is actually pretty useful. Excadrill is not the most powerful Pokemon by any means, but with the godsend that is Earthquake it can still hold its own against quite a few opponents. The fact that it's a ground steel type does mean it's vulnerable to the most common types out there, that being grass, water and fire, but the recognizability is what drew me to this Pokemon and I want an excuse to use it whenever I can. Also, Excadrill is like everything I want from my evolved Pokemon. Yeah man, just take a drill burr, make it bigger and give it a shit ton of spikes, it'll be fine. You know, Game Freak might be good at making all of their Pokemon unique, but I'm not so on board with their interpretation of what a signature move should be. Sure, Flapple might let an apple fall on its target, and the fat controller over here hisses steam at you. But is there room for anything a little more original? Oh, come to Papa. Phalanx is a wee squad of these round boys who honestly just want to battle. No Retreat raises all of its stats sharply, but at the cost of not being able to switch out. But who would honestly want to switch out once you've used an ability which takes a dozen other items and abilities to replicate otherwise? Phalanx is definitely the best theming I have yet seen on a Pokemon, with its battle-hungry demeanor, the changing of formation during battle, and the general idea of having a literal one Pokemon army truly commit to the fight and refusing to back down. The fact the poor sorts don't appear to be over a foot tall is none of my concern. Think of the most mundane object you can get your hands on within your home and there's probably already a Pokemon of it. Your pet, washing machine, hell even an apple. And while that's all well and good, it's just a bit too boring for me. Is there anything a little more out of the blue? You get it, guys? It's a worm! Appleton is the evolved form of an Appleton, which is a worm inside of an apple. Do you get it now? Worm. And while a small dragon inside of an apple is all well and good, when it evolves, apple and dragon merge into one obese apple pie. Everything about this Pokemon is just perfect. When you send it out, it tries to fly with these tiny wings it was given, and it generally has a very sluggish demeanor. When it attacks, it slowly steps forward and nudges its head against the enemy, for instance. And if you even think about playing with a bouncing ball with Appleton, by God, I wish you good fucking luck! I found an Appleton halfway through my playthrough, and I'm so happy to inform you a Fire Drake lost to a fat apple pie. No wonder Milo swapped out his Eldegoss for his own appley son. I like animals about as much as the next guy. I might argue I like them a wee bit more, seeing as I'm an environmental studies student. But I digress. Insects are perhaps the most fascinating bunch of them, seeing as how insects don't have to obey the rules bestowed upon the rest of the animal kingdom. According to all known laws of aviation, bees should not be able to fly. According to all known laws of thermal reassembly, a centipede should not be able to burn. I'm going to list a few reasons why you should own a Centiskorch. Tell me when I should stop. It's a giant burning centipede. No? Okay. Centiskorch can learn grass, poison, dark, and bug moves. No? Okay. When Dynamaxed, it turns into a Chinese dragon. Still not enough? Okay. It can learn water moves. No? I'll keep going. It's unaffected by fire type moves. Whoa, wait a wee second there. You're telling me this guy can learn moves all other fire types are weak to? It can learn moves which can deter any attacks of type Centiskorch itself is weak to, given you have enough speed. And it takes no damage whatsoever from fire attacks? What's the downsides? Well, it's a bit of a glass cannon because it's weak to a lot of types, but I really like that in an offensive character. Guess what my first TF2 main was? Most of the Pokemon I've used have always been switched out at some point in my playthrough. This was either because they were weak to the gym type I had to face in that point in time, or they found themselves to be replaced by a more powerful Pokemon of a similar type. The only exception to these circumstances would be when the Pokemon was just so strong that I didn't need to swap them out. I usually spend my time in between gym challenges leveling up the Pokemon I already had, so I could use them in the next gym challenge, but in retrospect it wouldn't have really been necessary, seeing how your team is usually 10 levels higher than the gym leader's team. Can we for a 1 second imagine how breaking it must be to be a Galarian gym trainer? You establish yourself as the most powerful trainer of your preferred type in your region, and this one child just marches through your doors and goes all like, "Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your whole entire family." I like horses. I know jack squat about them, and it's been ages since I've actually been on a horse, but a horse will always turn my head nonetheless. I therefore am quite pleased to have such a powerful workhorse to simply cleave my way through the game with. Like I said, there were only 2 Pokemon which, upon finding them at the beginning of the game, I kept in my team. And Mudsdale is more than worthy of the title Champion. Let's just ride our big Pokemon again in the expansion Game Freak, that's all I want. Having never played a Pokemon before the current set of games make me a prime candidate for exploring a new universe filled with creatures in an attempt to learn all about them. And up until now, most of the entries on this list have earned their place in my rankings due to their design, a gimmick or functionality. But for my favourite Pokemon in Sword and Shield, a simple announcement wouldn't be enough. So please, lock eyes with me and let the game begin. Lanturn is everything I could ever wish for in an RPG game. It belongs to 2 types which balance out each other's weakness. Almost all of the moves it can learn leave the target with a status effect. It has a ton of HP and it generally is just a cute design. I caught my first Chinchou in Hulbury before I was going to take on Nessa, but by then it already had a higher level than the rest of the party, and it almost fainted all the Pokemon I had on me at the time, and I never switched it out since. Lanturn usually turns out to be my last man stand floating in these battles. And Lanturn always manages to turn a losing battle around and generally never let me down. Mine doesn't even have stellar stats, and I'm sure I'll hunt for a more powerful example one day, but sometimes the carry of a team is not the loudest nor the largest member. Sometimes it's simply a case of old reliable.